Welcome to another edition of Wildcat Country. Eric Cohen and Shane Dale, and I don't want to play the I told you so game, Shane.
So let's not.
Well, we are going to. Arizona went 3-0 in the three basketball games that we broke down. Now, we knew the women were going to beat ASU, so that was no surprise. The men are back on track. My panicking last week, well, I was wrong. I'll give you that. You were right. Don't panic. I was wrong. And look what happened.
Well, I'm really encouraged in the fact that Arizona won not only beat UCLA, but did it by beating UCLA at its own game, really, which is a lower scoring defensive game. I mean, Mick Cronin's, that's more his style of basketball. It's not like the slow plodding pace that Virginia and Houston run,
right?
But it's still a little more defensive minded. And UCLA coming into the game, I think, was one of 6 teams in the country that was ranked in the top 20 in KenPom in both offense and defense. I don't think they are anymore. But Arizona scored 58 points, and if you knew they were going to score 58, you'd think they would have lost by 20. So we'll digest it. We'll get into a little bit more as far as what Arizona did right and or what UCLA did wrong. But you credit where it's due. You called it. I said that the men and women were going to combine to go 2-1, with the men beating USC, the women beating ASU up at McKale North, and U of A losing a close game to UCLA. I was wrong. In the last minute of the game, I was a little concerned that I might be right. But they avoided that scenario, and it was a good win. And it just shows that they are capable of beating anyone when they play their best.
Shane, it was so good to be. It was my first game at McKale in 3 years, I believe, since Gonzaga of 2019. Now, you were there last year against ASU.
Yeah, I was. Well, it's interesting. I feel like you're doing it wrong, Eric, because you go to all the football games and you experience all this disappointment and pain, and you skip all the basketball games where the fun typically is.
I can't help myself, Shane. I mean, the atmosphere was cool. I got to say, I mean, it was a great crowd, but it wasn't the crowd of UCLA 2005, UCLA 2002, which were next level, or even Washington 2011 was another game that I was there
for that too. The Derek Williams block. Absolutely. Yeah, I won tickets to that game through a Greg Byrne Twitter challenge, by the way.
Really?
No
kidding.
I'll tell you more about that another time.
Yes. But so yeah, that was really it was a good atmosphere, but it just wasn't. Maybe I'm wrong. If you guys are listening and think that I'm wrong and we're at the game,
maybe you're just kind of being wistful for your college days, and that's just how you remember it. Maybe you're putting the crowd on a pedestal. It's like you see a beautiful woman and you have a vision of her in your head, and then 10 years later you're like, I don't remember exactly that way.
Story of my life, Shane. Yeah,
I know. That's why I brought it up.
But the one thing that was interesting to me, and then we'll get to it. A lot of the players and guys on the bench, including Tommy Lloyd, are like raising their like.
He does it a lot. I don't think he has to. I think he just does it. He did that last year too.
The players, I mean, fans, and the fans stand up a lot, but then as soon as they make a basket, they sit down. It's like, let's keep it sustained. Let's. I look like they were.
You were there. I wasn't, but it looked like they were standing most of the second half.
They stand, then you sit, then you stand, then you sit.
Well, the students stand the whole time. I don't expect the whole crowd to.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. With that said, coming up in the second segment, we're lucky to talk to our friend, national champion AJ Bramlett, who will break down the UCLA game and Arizona's chances in the future. But first, Shane, it is time for Buy or Sell, which is presented by Ice Shaker. You are drinking one. You can see that on the YouTube stream. I have one behind me in my bookshelf. You too can have one. Go to iceshaker.com. Use promo code Wildcat Country, capital W, capital C, for $5 off. Or you can go to fanatics.com and get yourself one of these beauties by just ordering it there. So it's great. These things are awesome. So we are very glad for them to partner with us. All right. Number one, Shane, in Buy or Sell. I was wrong. There was no need to panic. Arizona is back to who they were in November.
Well, you know what? I'm going to flip the tables a little bit here because I want you to answer this first, because I'm having a hard time understanding how you press the panic button last week. You buy that it's time to panic, and then you say, "Oh, I think they're going to sweep the Southern California schools." So were you really panicking when you believed in your heart and you were right that they were going to come back and they were going to sweep these teams and everything was going to feel good again?
Well, that's a good one. I was panicking based on the play that I had seen. Was I sure that Arizona was going to beat UCLA? I felt it. Yeah. But there was concern. I mean, I just had a feeling. I'm like, they're not losing at home again the rest of the year, in my opinion.
We'll see.
But yeah, I was probably the panicking was probably a little over the top considering then at the end of the show, I picked Arizona to win both games.
Well, you know what though, it really is. I don't think you're as big a homer as you like to say you are. And when you were that confident they were going to beat USC and UCLA after they laid a complete egg against Oregon, it actually gave me hope that maybe you'd be right. And I was glad that you were. Now, look, I'm reminded of something that our general manager at ABC 15 reminded us of a lot, which was don't get too high with the highs and don't get too low with the lows. And when they lost at home to Washington State, that was an ugly loss. They got their butt kicked at Oregon. I didn't feel much differently about the team then, and I even mentioned it at the time. You can go back and listen to the podcast, which you should do, by the way, if you haven't already. And I feel the same way now. It's like they beat a great team. It wasn't a pretty performance, but they showed they could beat a very good team without have a pretty performance. But it was kind of an ugly defensive-minded game. They made some mistakes, and they still found a way to win. But I still feel the same way about this team, that they are capable of beating anyone in the country when they play their best. They're also capable of losing to at home against a Washington State team whose only road win of the season is against Arizona. Those are the two teams that we're dealing with, and it depends on which one shows up in the tournament. But look, I'm really encouraged defensively. I'm more encouraged now than I was a week ago that they could make a Final Four run, because if they could play that kind of defense, the offensive rebound that they allowed notwithstanding, if they could play that kind of defense in the NCAA tournament, then absolutely they can get far and they can get to a Final Four. So I'm more encouraged now than I was a week ago, but overall, I still have the same feeling about this team.
I'm going to buy this one. Yes, I was wrong. I had people reach out to me, a few of them off the air, and after you and I recorded it, and they were like, really, you need to calm down. The sky is not falling. And they were right, and I was wrong. And so I will not panic that way.
You're off the ledge.
Again, the rest of the year. Yes, I'm
Good.
off the ledge.
That's
number 2, Shane, Arizona's defense by yourself.
Got to buy it after what we saw. Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Well, it's good to know. Look, there were 2 possibilities, Eric. Number one, they're capable of playing good defense. They just hadn't for whatever reason, whether it was motivation or something else. Or number 2, they just don't have the guys to play defense. And I think it's more the former. Look, I think UCLA looked a bit flustered in that game. And I think we try to take a step back as fans and try to see the big picture as far as what did Arizona do right? They did a lot right, but what did UCLA do wrong? They missed some shots they typically make. They got out of there. They just looked they looked a bit almost kind of panicked at times. They settled for a lot of mid-range jumpers, and I think Arizona's defense had a lot to do with that. But I feel like they kind of got out of their game when Jaquez is out chucking threes, a 30% 3-point shooter. That's not what they want to do in the first place. So
and Singleton, Shane, who's their best 3-point shooter, had 0 points, which was really encouraging. I did not recognize this defense. It was like it was like Virginia was in Arizona's uniforms. You know what I mean? Like I was shocked by it.
Yeah, and they have to clean up in the offensive boards. That was the only real criticism of the game. That plus the last minute when they turned the ball over constantly.
We'll get to that.
We'll get to that. But no, overall they were great. I mean, the crowd I think had a lot to do with that. I think maybe UCLA got a little bit overconfident the same way Arizona had a couple weeks ago. I don't think it's going to be the same. The rematch is going to be different for sure. They're not going to. Put it this way: Arizona is not going to be able to score 58 points at UCLA and win, but definitely encouraged to see the defense play that well. And it gives me hope that, yes, they can make a run to the NCAA tournament because they are capable of playing that defense when they're focused and when they want to.
That will probably be a loss. UCLA is going to be out for them. Now we'll see what happens.
It'll be senior day for them too.
Yeah, exactly. I hope that is potentially Arizona's next loss. How about that? And we knew that.
That's fine.
Yeah. By the way, very annoying that this was the last game that UCLA is scheduled to play in McKale Center as a member of the Pac-12. And the fact they're not scheduled to play in Tucson next season. No, only Pauley Pavilion next season.
Wow.
That is horrendous by the conference.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate. And like we talked about, Eric, that's really the only thing I really feel badly about with them leaving. You know, on the football side, is that really a rivalry? I mean, USC's beaten us so many times in a row. It's not really a rivalry. And then UCLA, it's just the fire isn't there like it is in basketball. But Arizona UCLA is the best rivalry, college basketball rivalry on the West Coast by far, and it has been for a long time. And way back to the Lou Wilson era. Yeah. So it's a shame we're going to experience that, and I hope that they can find a way to keep the rivalry going, but it doesn't seem likely.
Number 3, Shane, Tommy Lloyd's lineup changes and rotations the last couple of games. Buy or sell?
Got to buy as long as it's working, right? You know, it's impossible to say Would Arizona have won those games if Pelle Larsson had started? I don't know, but it worked.
Played good off the bench. He played good.
Yeah,
off
he
the
did.
bench.
He did, and maybe that's just what's best for him. And I love he's got some well-timed aggression. I think going for him. Against UCLA in the second, he and Tubelis were much more aggressive in the second half, and were just. You can tell Tommy Lloyd's telling Pelle Larsson, look, just put your head down and go in and take it to the hoop. If you get blocked, you get blocked. You get fouled, you get fouled. Take it in and be aggressive because we need that from you. And not only in terms of putting the ball up, but then possibly creating a shot, last second pass. He's good at that as well. So he can pass the ball well. We don't give him enough credit for that. So there's no reason not to stick with that. Obviously, he came off the bench last season and was a good spark plug, and he's done well so far. So we'll see. We'll see how long it lasts. It works as long as you keep winning. Cedric Henderson is obviously perfectly capable of being in that role, kind of like as a senior leader, like Justin Kier was last year. But yeah, we'll stick with that. And then Arizona their rotations down to seems like 7 guys right now.
Yeah, I was bummed that Vesar did not get in the game on Saturday.
Yeah.
I was looking forward to seeing him in person, and I just was surprised that Tommy never considered going to him.
They went small for a while, especially in the first half when Bala was out for a stretch and Tubelis was really the 5 for a while and not especially effective in the first half. So instead of putting Vesar in there to give him more length and size, he decided to stick with a smaller lineup. And as long as it works, and we'll sing his praises. But yeah, it really seems like a 7-man rotation right now. That could change. I'm sure Adama Ball and Henry Vesar will be sprinkled in from time to time. But as long as it's working, like Casey Jacobson said, it's an overrated thing in games, maybe underrated in practice. And certainly the 7-man rotation worked for Arizona during their home sweep. So we can't complain about it.
Number 4, Shane, Arizona has not necessarily figured out its issues against overly aggressive teams. And we saw that in the final minutes on Saturday when UCLA cut a double-digit lead to 4.
This might be an all-buy segment. Yeah, absolutely. Against UCLA, against Tennessee, against Creighton, and a couple others I'm sure not thinking of. They've had trouble closing. They really have. And I'll cut them a little slack again, specifically against Creighton, because in Maui that turnaround was difficult, and Creighton's a very good team. But they do tend to make mistakes late in games that tend to leave that door open for other teams. When Kriisa got that technical against Tennessee, it almost turned the game on its head, and it did temporarily against UCLA. There, we haven't talked about that. Arizona's up 13. Tubelis looks like he has a breakaway dunk, and I couldn't tell what happened. Like he got blocked or something. He just lost the ball on the way up. Like he had
and they hit a 3, and you're like, oh.
With 4 minutes left, he makes that dunk, 15-point lead, crowd's going crazy, the game's over. Instead, he misses it badly. Tiger Campbell comes down, hits a 3, it's a 10-point game, and that set the stage for the last couple of minutes. So that is a concern, yes.
Were you having Illinois 2005 vibes when that happened?
No, actually, I wasn't thinking about that. I was thinking more about the games earlier this season. Now, in hindsight, yeah, it started to feel like that, but I know we don't like to give UCLA credit for anything, but they did a great job trapping there at the end. I think those consecutive plays late when Tubelis was blocked and then Larsson was blocked, and there was a correct call not to call the goaltend. As much as I hated them, those were clean plays from what it looked like.
I thought there was a goaltend on the Larsson one.
Did you get a chance to see it back?
I did. Yeah, because McKale has the great video boards, and they slow-moed it pretty good.
The ball went right off the rim. It's like it didn't even get over the cylinder. So again, I'm giving UCLA some credit. I think that Arizona did not handle that pressure well, for sure. But I think UCLA is also, they're one of the best defensive teams in the country, maybe one of the 5 best defensive teams in the country, and they weren't going to go quietly. But again, Arizona made a late mistake. They kept that door cracked open for a very good team, and they do that in the NCAA tournament. I fear it's going to bite them in the butt in a really bad way.
Number 5, Shane, women's basketball. They beat ASU. We're not really surprised about that. Nothing really to write home about there.
Yeah.
Buy or sell, they will have a chance. Or you think, as of right now, as it's playing out, Arizona will host regionals once again come March? Buy or sell?
Well, first of all, if Arizona beats the men's team beats ASU at home, I wonder, it'd be interesting to find the last time that football, men's basketball, and women's basketball went 5-0 against ASU.
There's also Blair Willis. He probably knows that.
Probably. Well, there's always a chance that one or the other could meet. They could meet in the Pac-12 tournament. But anyway, to answer your question, I'm going to buy that as well. Right as of right now, Charlie Cream, the women's bracketologist at ESPN, has Arizona as a 5 seed, which I think is about right. If you look at their schedule, Eric, they've got a ton of opportunities ahead of them. A lot of top 25 teams, or Oregon, which was just in the top 25, got knocked out. They're going to have a lot of really good quality win opportunities. And a lot of those games are going to be at home. And they got Stanford at home. They got Utah and Colorado at home, and they play both those teams well on the road. And like we talked about last week, they got completely screwed at Utah.
Horrible. And Colorado. Brutal.
Yeah. And then the Pac-12 tournament on top of that. So I think they're going to win enough games. And it's crazy because even if they go like 500 in those games, they probably have to do a little better than that. That could be enough to get them as a top 16 overall team, which would get them a top 4 seed. So I'm going to buy because I think they're going to get there. I think they're improving. I think they have enough home games to where they can make it work.
I'm just going to circle that game on February 9th against Stanford. They win that. They are a top 4 seed. Yeah. If they don't, I will be on the fence. How about that?
They'll need to win. They'll need to be like UCLA. They'll need to beat, Oregon on the road, Colorado, Utah. But they'll have. It's not a make or break necessarily. It's not a make or break with Stanford, but it would obviously be massive if they were to find a way to beat them. Yes.
All right. Bonus question, Shane. I have been so annoyed the last few days on social media, especially Twitter, with these UCLA fans. Would you agree that UCLA has become the most annoying, entitled basketball fan base against Arizona? I mean, one of their writers was calling it Arizona's Super Bowl. Did he not realize how many ranked teams Arizona's beaten earlier this year? What an idiot.
Well, I think it's more an LA sports fan thing in terms of entitlement. I say this with a bit of jealousy because they've won so many collective championships in Los Angeles, but they are the worst fan base in sports, LA sports fans in general, because they are the most fair weather and the most entitled. So I think maybe UCLA, that comes with the territory, but like you alluded to, I don't have a problem with their fans so much as that the people who write about the team are complete homers. So many of them are such homers, it's ridiculous. And they're more interested about, sniping on social media and writing petty stuff.
Disgusting.
Yeah. By the way, did you see Mick Cronin's comments about in one statement after the game, he said he's not going to make excuses for the loss. And the next one, he blames an early foul on basically derailing the whole game. So got an issue. He's a great coach, but I got an issue with that as well. But yeah, the LA sports writers in general are just kind of they're a different breed. Let's put it that way. And they're not my favorite.
But the UCLA fans, Shane. Yeah, I at least the ones that I was looking at, I want to find a rational fan that's like, Arizona outplayed us. We'll get them the next time. These were like, Arizona's Super Bowl. They're the 6th team in the Pac-12. I'm like, what are you people watching? And now you just look at the polls. Arizona's number 6. UCLA dropped below them. Like, you idiots. And I seriously, and I don't bash people on social media.
No, you don't. You behave a lot better than I do on Twitter, Erica. You really.
I came close to being like, are you an idiot? But I just not the way I am.
But you know what? They say that stuff to get under your skin, because that's all. After a loss, that's all they have.
I really think they believe it, and that's like they're believe. There was one guy that was like, Arizona talks smack about UCLA. Nobody talks smack before the game. Where was that? There was no proof of that. Like he said, Kirk Reese said this, but there was no proof of that.
It probably did, but I don't. Bottom line is I don't care, but like I said, the people who write about UCLA and LA sports in general are, they're a different kind of people, and I go out of my way to try not to see their comments on social, but I do sometimes anyway.
Yes, of course. Let's talk to our friend AJ Bramlett coming up, and then one of my favorite topics in the third segment, football scheduling here on Wildcat Country. Scooby, we sent you an ice shaker. They are a sponsor, courtesy of our buddy Chris Gronkowski. You have it right there.
I love my ice shaker. Fun fact: when I trained with Glenn Gronkowski, when we were trained together, people thought I was the other Gronk brother. So it's kind of funny. But yes, I love my ice shaker. It is very good. I use it every day. I am a veteran to the ice shaker game, by the way.
What's up, Wildcat Country? Chris Gronkowski here. Use coupon code Wildcat Country at iceshaker.com.
Shane, it's always good to have a national champion back on Wildcat Country, and it's none other than our friend AJ Bramlett joining us. AJ, glad to have you here once again. I want to start. I know this is probably not the ideal first question, but it's me asking. It's no surprise. Arizona's ranked 6th in the AP poll. To me, that seems a little high. To you, is that accurate, or is it a little much for this team?
If you just look around college basketball this year, man, I still think we're one of the best teams in the country. And I think, we've proven that any time we can beat, a top team in the country. We've got 6 wins against, quad 1 teams. And just the way that everyone's been this year, I think it's fine for us. When we're playing at our top and playing well, I think we're definitely a top 5 team in the country. Now, we've had times where we've not looked like we should be, ranked anywhere close to that. But right now, and with the 2 games that we came off, last week against USC and UCLA, and with what happened to everybody else in the country last weekend, I think it's fine for us. I think we can own that ranking for this week.
AJ, what are your top takeaways from the UCLA game, and were you surprised by not only the result, but by how low scoring the game was?
I was surprised by how low scoring it was. I thought that we would win both. I said, last week on my podcast that I thought we would go and get a sweep last week because we needed it. And really, the intensity, once I saw even against USC, just the intensity in which we played defense, that's been, kind of the barometer for this team. Is you can tell when we're going to win these games, and like the ones that we've lost, I could tell pretty quickly that we're just not in that same mindset. We don't have that same extra effort, challenging shots, everybody getting out there, rebounding, crashing the glass, like playing with just a little bit of extra energy. We had both of that, against USC and UCLA on Saturday. But I thought it was a statement game for us just, to prove kind of to everybody that we can win without scoring 90 points a game. I think we've done that a couple times this year in other stages, but everyone was picking UCLA in this game, when I was looking across. And still, even after the game, some people were like, oh, it was UCLA had an off game and, they had a bad shooting night. And I'm like, come on, man. Like, that was our defense that did that. That wasn't UCLA, just missing wide open shots all night. And, they really, did a really good job against us on the boards and it's really what kept them in the game. But, I thought we played a really good game. We proved that we can win a different way. That's a tournament style game that we won on Saturday.
Agree 100%. And their defensive rating in KenPom just shot up about 20 spots after that game. Let me ask you about the last minute of that game because, and I don't necessarily know if this is if there's a pattern here, but struggling to put UCLA away, the turnovers in the final minute. It reminded me a little bit of some of the other games they played where Arizona struggled a little bit down the stretch against Creighton and against Tennessee, where it's got maybe a little bit closer than it should have been toward the end. Is that a concern of yours, or is that something you think is going to work itself out?
I think it'll work itself out, but a little bit it's concerning. When you can't, once we've been pressed a few times, we haven't handled that very well. I thought, Kylan was strong with the ball that time on the sideline. He turned it over. He had a 5-second count. I wasn't, exactly sure what he was doing on that, but I was glad that he was strong with the ball and didn't turn it over, was actually doing the right play. We just had some careless passes, man. And like at the end of the game, you just have to value the basketball more than that. And guys have to want the ball, come to it, not wait for passes, ball faked a little bit more. But those are all things that you can work on those in practice and, make sure that the guys, are a little bit more fundamental in those times. But, they got a little bit nervous, I thought, just at the end. And, that can happen to a young team. It's still, we're not a perfect team. We have flaws, but, I thought that we played overall just a really good game. And, Azu played great. I thought he was very aggressive in the second half of that game, which I love to see, and especially in a physical game, because in the past, maybe those are the type of games where he hasn't had his best games, but this year that's kind of been different for him. So I was really happy to see that. Umar did great. And even Kerr, Kerr had some, passes that he probably wanted back, but he made a lot of good pocket passes and, ran the team like he needed to. And then, Courtney just doing his thing. And that's the Courtney that we need every game. That's the guy who I think that's who he is. Those other games aren't who he is. And he just had to get back to, playing confident and really locking up on the defensive end, because I thought his defense was way better than it was, especially in the Oregon game where I thought it was kind of subpar.
AJ, is it fair to say that Arizona will go as far as its guards take them? Because we know the big men are going to be great. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I think so. Especially in a tournament, you guys know this. Like it's guard dictated. It's guard how your guards play. Usually is going to determine what kind of run you're going to make. And Pelo's been playing a lot better. And I think him getting into more of a groove and even coming off the bench, it just gives him more kind of ownership, when he comes in, that he knows, he has the freedom to score and he can be a little bit more comfortable, in that role. I think that was a great move by Tommy to do that and, puts that in the starting lineup. He's played really well, these last 2 games. So, but yeah, we're going to have high level guard play. We're going to have to take care of the ball. We have to shoot it well, you know what I mean? And the bigs have been, I love to see it. And I've said this before. It's fun for me to watch because it's 2 big guys just really dominating, every time they go out there on the court. You don't see that very often anymore, but both of those guys and the connection that they have, they play incredible basketball the whole season, have been really consistent.
One guy I was really looking forward to seeing in person that did not get in the game on Saturday was Henry Vasar. Yeah. Were you surprised that Tommy didn't put him in a game like that? And what advice would you give to him based on what you've seen him do this year?
That's just part of it, man. As a freshman, I played that same role. My freshman year, I was behind, Joseph and Ben Davis. And in some games I got in, played more, 10, 15 minutes. Some games I didn't play at all. And so that's just kind of the trajectory that it goes. If Tommy, would have put him in, I'm sure he would have, played his ass off because that's what he does. He plays hard. So, but in that type of game, you're going to go with your top guys. We needed that win. It was a big, statement win for the season. And you're going to go with your experienced guys and guys that give you the best chance to win. And so, Henry's just got to keep working. Like we've seen it. He's got a ton of talent. He's played really well in spots this year. And, when you're young, you're just inconsistent. And so that's part of the game. It's part of his development. But I'm sure Tommy's, was keeping his confidence up. He was a great teammate on the bench during the game. I watched him, and I do watch guys' body language and things on the bench when they're not playing. He was a great cheerleader for the team, and he was, happy after the game. So, he's where he needs to be, and he'll just continue to get better, I think.
Yeah, AJ, kind of along those lines, it's really become a 7-man rotation for Tommy Lloyd the last couple of games, and only 7 played against UCLA. We had Casey Jacobson on a few weeks ago, and he said that depth is really overrated in game. In practice, it's underrated because you need those guys to practice against. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's a true statement. A lot of teams don't go very deep into their bench, especially as you get down, into the tournament and into the season, into conference play. Rotations tighten. Some guys that were playing in the beginning of the year usually don't play as much, and the coach goes with his guys that he can trust the most and who he thinks is going to give him the best chance to win. And I still think that, Henry's going to be a part of that by the time we get to the end of the season. Kylan's proven that he is that guy, and we can trust him and count on him. He's just going to continue to get better and better as he, gets more maturity and gets more games under his belt. But, I love it. And so he's proven that he can step up in big moments and make big shots. And he plays great defense and takes care of the ball most of the time. And so, that's just the way that it is. Some teams can go a little bit deeper. Our team this year, not yet.
You got Washington and Washington State coming up, and 2 games that Arizona really struggled in a couple of weeks ago. We had Matt Mielbach on last week, and he talked about those trips up to the Pacific Northwest can be kind of strange because you're flying in one place and you're kind of driving out in the middle of nowhere. And obviously Pullman is like the definition of the middle of nowhere. In your experience, were those games kind of tricky just because you it kind of felt like you were just traveling into obscurity, or did that come across to you at all?
It was always a tough trip for us. When I was there, it was always a tough trip. Like Washington was just a beast for us every time. When I was there, they were really good. McCullough and, the big guys, Patrick Femmerling and all those guys back in the day. So for me personally, that was always a tough trip. I had to be ready to go. With this year, they both played us really well. Washington could have beat us really in McKale. They had an opportunity to. They played well enough to, I think, in that game. And so it is a weird trip just because it's kind of disjointed. It's not like a normal, trip where you're just playing, close to each other. You got to go up to Pullman, which is just an interesting place in general. And so, I think they're going to be ready to go, though. We have revenge, on our mind, and they're not going to overlook Washington. And then, obviously, what Washington State, did to us in McKale, there's got to be some get back for that. So I think we're going to be ready for that trip.
All right, AJ, my last question for you. It feels like this season is a lot more wide open than a lot of seasons. There doesn't seem to be like a dominant team. A lot of very good teams, obviously, but Houston just lost at home to Temple. Obviously, Arizona dropped a home game to Washington State. Just about every very good team has lost a game to an average team, and so a lot of those teams have lost at home. Does this season seem more wide open to you than most seasons? And could Arizona possibly benefit from that in the tournament?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've been saying that all year long. Like, I haven't seen a team that I'm really scared of for us. You know what I mean? I mean, we could beat any team. We could also probably lose to any team, but that's how it is across the board. I mean, even Kansas, last week looked great. Then they got destroyed at home by TCU. I was, surprised by that. It's just almost every team has had one of those games where you're like, oh man, like I didn't expect them to lose that. And that's just part of the parity, I think, of college basketball. I think the transfer portal has a lot to do with that because, there's a lot more experienced guys that can just transfer in and make differences, at schools quickly. And it's not, you don't have to wait on them as much because they have experience. And we have two of those guys on our team this year. So I like the way that, it's shaping up this year. Anyone can make a run. And, we are one of the best teams in the country, and there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to do that too. I mean, we can take it as far as our shooting and our guard play goes, and if we play defense the way that we know how, there's no reason why we can't make a deep run this year.
All right, three quick hitters for you before you go, AJ. First of all, UCLA's final appearance as a Pac-12 member at McKale Center was last Saturday. If you were Dave Hickey, are you trying to make this deal so that they play a home and home every year, or they switch it up every other year?
Absolutely. I think we have to keep, and I hate that they're going, to be honest, if I want to tell you the tradition of it. And, it's really, to me, it's too bad for college basketball and especially for, the Pac-12 and Pac-10 back in my day. But absolutely, you got to keep those rivalries going. If people are going to change conferences, it's not going to matter if they're in the conference. I mean, obviously, it means maybe a little bit more that it's a conference game and, we're both at the top of the standings or whatever. But just the tradition of the games and the kind of the hatred that we both have for each other. And, we got to keep that going. I mean, that's what college basketball is all about. You want to see those teams, match up with each other that you've seen historically. And, they had to figure out a way to make that happen.
Who is the most annoying fan base that you personally deal with? Now, I know you live in New Mexico, and I was ranting to Shane earlier in the show about UCLA and their foolishness, let's say, on the social media. You might have to deal with some Lobos. Personally, who's the worst that you have to go up against?
I mean, the Lobos are good this year. I like when the Lobos are good because the city is fun. I mean, it's just like in Tucson, where if the team is doing well, the city's a lot better. It's more electric. So they're having a good season. Maybe we'll get a chance to match up with them in a tournament and see who's the big dog in that one. But I think UCLA. I've been reading a lot of that this week, and pretty annoying, man. Annoying.
I mean, they're just delusional. They're not giving facts. It's just flat out lies, right?
Right. I've been reading it pretty much all week. It's still going on. I'm like,
I can't. I had to like shut Twitter down because I was getting so frustrated. All right. Finally, on your podcast, first of all, tell us about your podcast. And then you've had some monster guests on with you lately.
Yeah, no, I mean, I want everyone to listen. It's called Bear Down Ballers. I mean, you can find it on anywhere that you get your podcasts. I've been really, lucky to have, really a good line with the program. So I've been able to get guys on. I've had Kylan on. Courtney was on earlier in the season. Pretty much almost all the guys. I still got to get the big guys back on. Umar and Zeus should be on here pretty shortly, and get the coaching staff on as well. Tommy came on, earlier this season as well. And then just the historical guys. JT hops on all the time. Had Bennett on last year. Eugene. Pretty much everybody, man. I had Quinn Tebbs on. Quinn did a great job. So it's just, for me, it's something that, I love Arizona basketball. It's part of my family. I have sons now. They're involved in it. Like, it's just in our blood. So, to be able to stay connected to the program, and really feel like, I'm really following these guys and being a part of it. And then kind of bridging the old with the new is also fun. So, I've been really enjoying doing it. It's about a year and a half into it now, and trying to keep it rolling, man. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, keep it going. I mean, the guest list right there is just no podcast. Even ours can rival that. Are you kidding? So Bear Down Ballers, check that out. AJ, great to talk to you once again, and I'm sure we will have you on before the tournament.
Sounds good, guys. We'll keep it rolling.
If If you're looking to add value to your sports cards, you've got to check out dtsportscards.com. They're an authorized dealer for PSA, which means you'll get great prices on your submissions if you go through them. And for just $2 a card, DT Sports Cards will take a close look at each card you submit and let you know whether it's worth grading. I just submitted some high-end hockey cards. They took a very close look, said they're good to go, and they all earned a PSA 10 grade, which tripled the value of each card. DT Sports Cards is located right here in Arizona. They provide quick, personalized service through email or direct messages. Find them online at dtsportscards.com and check them out on Instagram at dt_sportscards.
I want to thank AJ Bramlett for joining us. Great to talk to him as always. Also want to give a shout out to our buddy Riley, who I met at Frog and Firkin on Saturday before the game. He watches us on YouTube, and he was a big fan of the buy or sell. So it's just cool when, I've met a few of you. David was one that I met at the San Diego State game, and some others along the way. So it's always great meeting everyone. And there will be chances, if you'd like to get an autograph of one Shane Dale, there'll be a couple of chances in February. Now, the card show with DT Sports Cards, who's our sponsor of our third segment, is not happening this Saturday. What's the story with that?
Oh, yeah. The Knights of Columbus and Chandler, they double booked for Saturday. So unfortunately, my card show seller debut will have to be pushed back to February. So it'll be 4 weeks from that Saturday, whichever week. I think it's February 25th. We'll give you more updates as we get closer. But yeah, I'll be there. DT Sports Cards, which if you'd like to submit cards for grading to PSA, go through them. They do a great job handling your cards, looking them over for a very small additional fee. There's the DT Sports Card logo behind Eric there. For $2 a card, they'll look over your cards. I benefited from it greatly. Eric, I'm getting back this week a Connor McDavid and Patrick Kane Young Guns, which are like the big rookie cards in hockey. They both got a PSA 10. And I would not have submitted them if David DT Sports Cards didn't tell me that they looked good. So he does a fantastic job. Yes, absolutely. Highly recommend him. Go check out dtsportscards.com.
If you're a card collector, make some money. Listen to David, DT Sports Cards. Another way to get Shane Dale's autograph is to check out the Toast and Taste, the East Valley chapter Toast and Taste on Friday, February 17th at the Phoenix Airport Marriott. You can go to alumni.arizona.edu/events. Shane and I are emceeing this. It's with special guest is Rocky LaRose. So looking forward to talking to her. And it will be a great night, and we would love to see all of you there. So check that out, and we will give more information about that as we go along. Now, last Wednesday, after we recorded the podcast, Shane, the Arizona football schedule came out. I was all ready to say Arizona is making a bowl game next year.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just go over this. I'm just going to say, without breaking it down, I'm going to give you 3 games in a row. You tell me the record for those 3 games. How about that?
Sure.
Okay. NAU at home, at Mississippi State, UTEP at home, non-conference.
I think 99% of people would say 2-1, which kind of gives me pause because I'd like to go against the crowd, but 2-1. Yeah, it's 2-1 all day for those 3.
Okay. Next 3. We agree. At Stanford, home against Washington, at USC.
1-2. They beat Stanford, they lose the next 2.
I think that the Washington game is going to be interesting. I know Washington's good. I think Arizona can win that game.
They played them tough last year.
Yeah, I'm going to circle that one. The Stanford game kind of scares me. New coach, all that. We saw what happened with Arizona in the Bay Area this year. But I'll give you that 1-2. So through 6 games, Shane and I are both predicting 3-3. All right. The next stretch here, at Washington State, home Oregon State, home UCLA.
I'll be optimistic and predict a win in there. That's a brutal stretch, though. Absolutely. I mean, usually it's going to have a different quarterback, so you never know. But in Oregon State's coming off a one of their best seasons in recent memory. I'll say they'll find a win in there somewhere, but it's 0-3 would not be shocking. But I'll be optimistic and say 1-2. Arizona
really never plays well up in Pullman. Oregon State has DJ Uiagalelei, or I believe I got that somewhat right. Former Clemson quarterback. They should be ranked. And UCLA going to be ranked. They got a 5-star freshman quarterback coming in. I think Arizona wins at least one of those games. I think this is the key to the season, though. If you can win 2 out of 3 here, they're making a bowl game.
Sure.
You win 1, we start to get right now you and I are going to say 4-5 going into the last 3 games. Let's take these individually, Shane. At Colorado with Dion.
They're one of the most unpredictable teams because he's recruited so well, but is he going to put it together in season 1? And I think the question is, can Dion, can he coach? It's one thing to coach a non-power 5 team. It's another thing to come and coach in the Pac-12. And I know Colorado in the Pac-12, it's not exactly the SEC, but can they put it all together right away? It's going to be in Boulder. So you want me to make a prediction on this game right now? I'll go ahead and be optimistic and say that Arizona wins.
All right. So you're saying 5-5. I'm going to say a loss at this point. Just at this point in time, I'll say 4-6. Utah at home the following week. I actually like Arizona to win this game. I don't know what Utah's going to look like. Cam Rising got hurt in the Rose Bowl. Arizona gave him a great game a couple years ago. I said on Twitter last week that the Arizona State game would not be for a bowl game. But I actually am going to go back on that. I think Arizona is 5-6 going into that game against ASU. How about you?
I don't see it. It will be senior day. I think that's our last home game of the season, right? So there'll be that emotion there. But Utah is still at least 3 or 4 steps ahead of Arizona as a program. I can't pick Arizona to win that game.
All right, so we're both having at 5-6 going into ASU. Kenny Dillingham's first year. As of right now, Shane, gut feeling, is Arizona making a bowl game or are they not?
Well, I think I'm contradicting myself because I looked at the overall schedule and I was going to predict them to go 5-7. So at some point I must have been too optimistic. But that game in Tempe, on paper, Arizona's the better team going in. It's hard to say. So, you know what? For now, because no one's going to remember this in a few months anyway, let's say they go into Tempe and they win and they go 6-6. But I reserve the right to change my mind on that.
Yes, this is early. It's not even February, and the season is 8 months away.
Yeah.
I just have a feeling if Arizona beats Utah, as I predict, and gets that momentum going into the last game, I think they win. I think they win in Tempe. You know
what's interesting about that, though, Eric, is I'm sorry to cut you off. A lot of times Arizona's had big upset wins before the ASU game, and they'll go and lay an egg in Tempe. You remember when they beat Oregon? They blew out Oregon in 2013 and then got destroyed by ASU the following week. Against Utah, was it 2015? They beat Utah in overtime or double overtime. They go to Tempe and they lose. So I don't know if there's anything to that. I get the logic, but there is a history of Arizona kind of flaming out before they play ASU.
The worst part to me, Shane, is Arizona has not won in Tempe since I believe 2011.
I was there. Yep.
Yeah, same. I mean,
that was Tim Kish was the last coach to beat ASU for Arizona in Tempe.
In Tempe. Yep. I think Jed Fish gets it done. I think Arizona goes to a bowl game. Yeah, low-level bowl game. I mean, if they go to the Jimmy Kimmel LA Bowl, if that's still a thing, or the Vegas Bowl, if that's, that may be a little above Arizona, but the Pac-12 is going to be great. If Arizona goes 6-6 next year and makes a bowl game, I would be very pleased. I'm still saying this, Shane. 2024, the way the schedule shapes up, that's Arizona's season. If we get a chunk of players back, like the T-Max and Noah Fafita, that is Arizona's season to make a run. I will say that.
I agree with that. And I think the big question, Eric, is still the defense, and specifically, is Johnny Manson a defensive coordinator? We've seen he can recruit. He got a big commit over the weekend.
Leviticus Sua. Yeah.
Leviticus Sua. By the way, I love they're putting all the books of the Bible together with Leviticus and Ephesians and Genesis. And I know I'm forgetting a couple.
But Matt Moreno talked about him months ago, Shane. So it's cool to see this.
He got it.
That was the one recruit whose name I remembered all the way from back in the summer.
Yeah, but I still think, Eric, that football, it's still it's like 45% recruiting and 55% coaching. So is Johnny Manson a defensive coordinator? Is there a reason he didn't get that title before? We'll see. We'll wait and see. I give him a mulligan for last season. He's getting more of his guys in there now, just like I gave Jed Fish a mulligan for the first season as head coach. So we'll see. But I think the offense is going to be better. The defense is a big question mark. And I think the rest of the Pac-12 collectively will have improved. And it's going to be a challenge for Arizona just to keep up with that.
So will Arizona make a bowl game? Give us your thoughts either on our YouTube page for this one or at Cat Country AZ on Twitter. Give us your thoughts and let us know if we're off base. 6-6 is what Shane and I are saying for now. Knock on wood, they make a bowl game. I will be ecstatic. I will try to be at that game. If it's not in some stupid location, randomly somewhere in the country. I'm not going to Shreveport like Arizona did in 2015, something
the
like that.
V100, the Advocare V100 Bowl, or it's the Independence Bowl, but it was the Advocare or something.
Advocare, yeah, that was a bad one. I mean, they won.
But they won, that was BJ Denker's year. Yeah, they whipped Boston College, right. I remember.
Yeah. But no stupid location. Give us somewhere where we can travel to. What I don't understand, and then my brief rant, and then we'll end the program here.
Go for it.
Why the Arizona Bowl? If Arizona makes a bowl game, they should make a deal to have the Wildcats in it. They'll sell that place out.
Do you remember way back then they had the Copper Bowl in Tucson? And I forget, it came with the Inside.com Bowl and Inside Bowl, and they had all these other iterations. But originally it was the Copper Bowl, and it was played in Tucson. And I believe, if I remember right, Arizona played in that game a couple of times, and they did well in those games. I
believe that the conference affiliations and bowl games, once we have this new playoff in 2025 or something like that, like, just ditch those already. The bowl game gets to pick whoever they want. Here's the list of teams, and you slot them in however it works out. I'm sorry for the MAC and the Sun Belt teams, but it is what it is. If you're bowl eligible, the bowl game, if Tucson wants the Arizona Bowl, great. If the Wildcats want to go there, great. Let's see some deal making on the table. All right, that's my random rant of the week. All right, Shane, bold predictions. How many games do the Wildcats win this weekend against the Washington schools, men and women combined?
Women sweep at home. The men, it's so hard to say, but I feel like just because Arizona struggled so much against the Washington teams, the Furtman, McKale, they're going to have a chip on their shoulder. Plus, I think it was kind of best case scenario because they beat UCLA, but I think they got a bit of a reality check into that game. So I think they're going to go into the Washington schools with their heads clear. Matt Mielbach told us that trip, especially to Pullman, is always kind of weird because you're out in the middle of nowhere and it kind of throws you off mentally. But I think maybe foolishly that Arizona will go on the road and win both of those games and come back 8-3 in the Pac-12.
There we go, Shane. Not foolishly. That's great picks. Okay. I think the women will sweep. I agree with that. I'm going to give you a score. I just have this one just stuck in my head.
All right.
Thursday night, late game. Arizona 77, Washington State 69. Just a hunch play. I don't know why I feel that. Okay. Whatever the line is, you guys do with that information as you please. On Saturday, I think the game against Washington on Fox going to be close, Shane. I think it's going to be scary close. But I think Arizona wins somewhere in the neighborhood of 80-74 with free throws at the end of the game. I'm giving you scores.
If you're right on one or both scores, Eric, I will play this clip and I will pin it to the top of the Wildcat Country page for the rest of the season.
For that right there, that's all I need to hear. I want to thank AJ Bramlett once again for joining us. Great stuff from him. For Shane Dale, I'm Eric Cohen. Thanks for listening. And as always, bear down.